So this court has been more than willing to allow the president to fire members of other independent agencies. Why is this their line?
Well, this is the line that comes the closest to affecting the money and the economy. And that is clearly becoming a bit of a red line if you listen to the tenor of the arguments in the court and the justice's response to it. We know that this is an independent central bank and that any influence from the executive could potentially spin not just the U.S. market, but the global markets into chaos. And I think the justices are acutely aware of that. And hopefully we are seeing the emergence of some sort of line in terms of unfettered executive power that we've seen thus far.
Lisa Cook released a statement today after the arguments. Part of it reads, this case is about whether the Federal Reserve will set key interest rates guided by evidence and independent judgment or will succumb to political pressure. For as long as I serve at the Federal Reserve, I will uphold the principle of political independence and service to the American people. They wanted this to be about Lisa Cook specifically. They thought this wasn't, they as in the government, as in the president, as in Bill Pulte, thought this was not going to be a high hurdle to jump. They ran into a lot of opposition by way of finding themselves at the Supreme Court. My concern in listening to the arguments today is that and I believe it was Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson that made the point that they're not deciding on they're not being asked to decide about the merits. The way this came all the way up to the Supreme Court is about whether she should be able to stay on the Fed or not while it is the underlying issue is being litigated. The Supreme Court, though, in many other cases, has decided to go further. When they overturned Roe versus Wade, the question on the table before them in that case was not whether they should overturn Roe versus Wade. It was about one clinic in Mississippi. Do you think the justices in this case will decide to go further, or will they rule on the narrow scope in front of them?
So from being in the courtroom today, I felt that I finally saw the type of skepticism about the abuses of executive power that we should have been seeing all along. And again, you mentioned that it seemed that this is a vehicle just attacking these high-ranking and particularly black federal officials has gone without any check. If we think about the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, if we think about the chair of the NLRB, if we think about the Librarian of Congress,
all black, Hayden, by the way, America, all black, unceremoniously fired.
Exactly. But this is now messing with the money. And this, I think, is a real problem. And as you point out, this was an emergency motion. This was a stay. This is simply to allow Lisa Cook to continue to do her job and to keep our markets independent and functioning well while we adjudicate what I believe are wholly specious claims against her, but at least allow her to continue to do her job while she mounts a defense against this administration's attack.
Who knew you had to defend yourself from a freaking tweet? A tweet. Well, this was a tweet, a baseless tweet. I know. I should know by now. I'm still never going to not be outraged.
I know.
It's an off-brand tweet. It's not even a real tweet.
I mean, it's not a real tweet, but this is what he does. And this is how we land in these spaces, because Donald Trump thinks he can litigate everything to his particular liking and to his particular cause. But there's this little thing called reality. And what I love about reality is when it gets checked. And it got checked today by none other than Justice Kavanaugh. Let's take a listen to the little bit of the reality check that Justice Kavanaugh brought to the proceedings.
Let's talk about the real-world downstream effects of this, because if this were set as a precedent, it seems to me, just thinking big picture, what goes around comes around. All the current president's appointees would likely be removed for cause on January 20th, 2029, if there's a Democratic president, or January 20th, 2033. And then we're really at will removal.
There you go. Reality hits, right? It hits hard, because the thing that I tried to get my Republican friends and former friends to understand is that everything you're signing off now has a price tag to it. And the justice today really kind of crystallized that price tag. Now, in the context of what what happens at the Fed, but there are broader, and it kind of goes to your point, Simone, about is this a narrow? Will this have a narrow effect or decision, or will it have a bigger ramification? I think this decision is to offset the bigger ramifications. Probably what you heard in that courtroom today, because these justices know the money. Okay, because you start messing with the Fed, you mess with my 401k, right?
That's right.
And their 401ks look pretty good, right? And two, the precedent that's set for a future president to come in and basically tell Congress, hey, you have no role here. In Supreme Court, you already said we got the power to do what we're about to do. Y'all fired. Goodbye.
That's right. And, the court hasn't seemed to be as concerned about precedent as we would like up to this point.
Right.
But it was very refreshing to hear that acknowledgement by Justice Kavanaugh and to hear, frankly, all of the justices pushing this issue, questioning the idea of whether we can consider a Truth Social post as formal notice that someone is being fired. I mean, the absurdity of how this case has even gotten as far as it has was put on full display before the court. And I hope that this court is going to do the right thing in this instance and recognize the importance of drawing firm lines when it comes to this seemingly, unfettered federal power.